Hey, Nick.
Hello, Warwick. Hello, listeners.
Hi, listeners. Let's
You
go,
ready?
Nick.
All
Make
right.
us laugh, please.
What did the buffalo say to his son when he left for college?
I don't know, but by the way you're languaging this very carefully, I'm fascinated to hear what the buffalo said to his son when he went to college.
Bye, son.
Oh,
That's a dad joke.
The very best kind. The ones that make you
oh
cry.
dear, oh dear. That's I love how you've related that to today's guest
I
copy.
did. I searched long and hard to find an appropriate joke. And, the first thing I searched was apprentices. And it was only about making them the butt of the joke. So I threw that out the window and I came back to something that was a little more relatable.
I think that's the first time you've done a direct, like, join the dots between guest and joke.
I'm very, very excited by our guest today. And I
You've
don't
set the
mind
standard.
admitting
You're
that
going to have to do that every time from now on.
I try, but nobody's ever been as important to me as our guest today is. And so I had to try really hard today.
Okay. So before Nick pees her pants with excitement, our guest today is Maggie Dent. Now, I can't really say from anywhere because you've written so many books. It's like from a whole bunch of different books. I think the best thing, Maggie, is just to say welcome to the show and tell our listeners who the heck you are.
Oh, look, just thanks for having me along because this is something I'm deeply passionate about, as you know, and I'm pretty passionate about helping our boys transition into life beyond with at least all their limbs and all their bits. So for those who don't know, I was born and bred on the farm in the wheat belt in Western Australia. I'm the fifth of six, so I was pretty feral as a kid. Hung out with my dad most of the time because my mum was pretty difficult, so therefore I'm part bloke. And then I went off to uni and I became a high school teacher. So I was, I just loved teaching co-ed for a long time, and then ended up realizing anyone can teach them how to write a paragraph, but not everyone was good with them when they wanted to end their life. So I did a postgrad diploma in counselling and therapy, and I counselled them for a number of years, and then realized you need to work with parents as well. So that, and then on my intensive breeding program, when I had my four sons, I was a bereavement coordinator at a palliative care. So I was a death doula.
Wow.
Worked in the funeral industries, and it's just ridiculous how I got here. I have no idea how I got here. And I think I kind of really proud that my 10th and final book is going to get landed this year. And I've gone all the way back to teens, which is, I had a really troubled time as a teen. And the stories that they've shared with me, particularly boys, because apparently boys used to come and talk to me, but they wouldn't talk to anyone else. So the knowledge that they've shared, plus I did a survey in from boys to men. I wanted their voices, and I also wanted the voices of men who had their prefrontals and had grown up, reflecting back on what would have helped them. And that I was really happy to see I was still on target. So really, really looking forward to our chat.
Well, I'm not even really sure where to go. I'm probably a little bit apprehensive about outing myself as a new dad. So I have an 8-month-old son, and I've got a 12-year-old daughter to my previous relationship. But for me, this is a very personal chat as well, because with the impending birth of my son, and as a coach and a mentor, I'm committed to self-growth and self-learning and being the best version of myself. And so have done a fair bit of reading, and I'm going to come out and say it, Maggie, I haven't read any of your books yet. I have read Steve Biddulph's a couple of times.
Yep.
Both of
and I'll
books.
forgive you completely. What's really interesting is that after having done the 6 seasons of Parental as Anything with the ABC, I was approached to see if I'd do one for dads, because they kept saying the dads I spoke to said, I want to be a better dad than my dad, but where's the game book? And so I stepped into, the Good Enough Dad, which is the podcast I've just finished the first season. And I think that's exactly what I wanted men to share.
Yes. How
are you bumbling along on this journey, rather than us women always telling you what you should be doing? Because, the biggest social change in Australia, and it is actually in the Western world. I've just got back from Canada and US. You go to a playground on the weekend, there aren't any women there. They're all dads. They've got babies tied on. They got blooming changing nappies and whatever, and they've got kids and toddlers. They've got the lot, right? stepping up with big, beautiful hearts. And their biggest thing is that I keep on getting worried I'm stuffing it up. And I keep saying, well, all the women have been doing that. Why can't you do a bit of that? Like, where you are conditioned to be the fixers so often still with that patriarchy. You're the fixers. And so the number of dads that have said to me, Maggie, oh my God, how do you shut down those tantrums? And when I tell them, no, mate, not supposed to, that's a sign your kid's growing really beautifully.
Yeah.
But you've got to be able to stand beside it without, whatever happened to you at that same age doesn't come out your mouth in that moment. And I've seen dads just flip right over to be that dad that kneels down beside them and realizes this is okay. I'm not failing. I'm not stuffing it up.
Maggie, sorry, Warwick.
We're going to do this a lot, so I'm going to let you go, Nic, please.
Okay. Maggie, I wonder why we haven't been talking about this for 50 years prior to now. I feel like these are very open topics now that we all share and engage on. I think when I talk to our client base, for example, most of which are mums and dads, we talk about their parents and how a village raised us all as children, and that's very different now. We don't have that, and we've gotten into this comparison game, and it's people like yourself that are wise enough and open enough to come out and share what you've learned and experienced that pave the way. So I think your podcast, Good Enough Dad, is really important because we get to hear and attach ourselves to other people's stories and get an understanding that actually I'm doing okay, or wow, I could do that better, or holy moly, this person just said that maybe there's an opportunity for me here. Why is it, though, that we weren't talking about it for the 50 years or even more before that?
Oh, the social norms around patriarchy and feminism. Come on, Nic. Like being able to pull those down, it takes a lot of work. And I think while I've still got breath in me, I'm not stopping that because I was really lucky that my youngest sibling was a boy and he was a lamb. So I grew up with a gentle boy. So I knew that they didn't all have to be buffheads, which is what the patriarchy man box said. They only one way to be a man is loud, the winner with muscles, and, you don't tolerate anyone, but, all of that rubbish. And the second one was my mum wasn't my attachment figure. My dad was. So whenever I had nightmares or wet the bed or whatever, and I was a sleepwalker, I was a pretty anxious little kid. It was always my dad who came. So I guess it was in my DNA kind of as I go forward to be able to, dads actually have beautiful big hearts. And they, if once the kind of, perspective change that says you can still be a loving dad and a man. And I do remember Steve Bidoff sharing his story that his dad wheeled him down the street and, whenever he was, he's only a little bit younger than me in the 50s. He was ridiculed and made fun of. So, the big shift is that we're having, my big message out there is that it's about team parenting.
Yes.
Does it really matter if the female partner earns more money? No. Is it what matters is, are we meeting the needs of our kids in our home right now? And how do we juggle that between us? And that it doesn't mean dad always has to be the bad cop, right? Because that was what it was. You wait till your father gets home.
That's right.
Like what a lot of rubbish. Such
a great way to distance kids from their dads too.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
Maggie.
exactly what we did. Dad was the one that was supposed to cause the pain and do all the whole behaviorism stuff, which we also know doesn't work. So I think as we deconstruct it, that there is no perfect parent. And I keep reminding that to the mums in the audience, who are on Insta forever thinking they've found the perfect. No, there is none. There never was. There never will be. Kids are incredibly unpredictable and messy and listen, they've been doing that forever, right?
That's right.
And that village is disintegrated because, to survive, quite often both parents need to be working anyway, right? But even if it's because we want to do both, I think the world is far more forgiving, in terms of watching who's, accepting that both of us, no matter who your co-parents are we working together as a team for the best of our kids and our home? And that a good enough parent, which is around 30 to 40% of the time, can raise exceptional kids. Is that the best news ever?
Yeah, it is.
Right? The bar's pretty low. I do encourage them to try and push it up a bit. So one of the things after particularly my resilience seminar is We are biologically wired to protect our kids, right? It doesn't matter who you are, mums or dads. However, they are meant to experience moments of discomfort.
Yeah.
Right. And, that's one of the key messages of Jonathan Haidt's latest book about why we've got so many anxious teens is we've wrapped them with safety in them and, ripped out dangerous playgrounds. So I've been banging on now for 24 years about why our kids need to fall out of trees and fall over. And it's lovely that, the experts have now got the statistics to show why it's good. You're not a lousy parent when your kid, when you're late to school because it was a random poo. How can you be a lousy parent when your kid's bowels aren't synchronized? How can you be a lousy parent when your kid falls off their bike, and you've got to kiss it and then you've got to wrap it up in 25 Band-Aids? No, you're not. Right. And it's not easy for us. If we actually knew, I mean, this is a terrible thing to say, but if we knew how hard it was to raise kids, we wouldn't breed.
No way.
The population would die out, right?
Yeah. Then there's a lot of work to be done around the acceptance of doing the best we can, Maggie. I think there's been so much. I was reflecting this morning when I was thinking about talking to you today, and I was thinking about my own parenting journey. My kids are now all adults in varying degrees. And I was thinking about the first experience I had as a parent feeling shame in one form or another. And I can remember right from having my first child in hospital, there was that sense of shame. I wasn't doing it right. And so to fix that, I was constantly looking for ways to be a better parent, but there was no acceptance for me ever. And I think that has impacted the kids in their own way and forms of anxiety, of course. But I can recall really clearly doing the Triple P program that was around, well, she's 28 now. So, 25 odd years ago, I went through that program. And some of those lessons are still really powerful and very important, and they've impacted the way I've gone on to be a parent. But that was I didn't feel like that was an empowering experience for me at the time. I can remember feeling really ashamed.
So this is the one way we've got to do it, right?
Right.
But it doesn't, because every kid's different.
That's
so
right.
If you have boys are quite different to most girls, trust me, I've got that one sorted. But also neurodivergent kids or kids who have come from a trauma background, intergenerate. All of these things mean, are they a rooster? Are they a lamb? Are they a dandelion? Are they an orchid? Yep. And that sort of assumed all the kids turn up the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's our big problem. You don't know who you're going to get. Yeah. you don't actually get the one you wanted. I wanted one that slept first. Get that one.
Yeah, I didn't get that one either. That's twice now. I'm clearly doing something wrong.
No, you're not. Like the whole, that what is considered by pediatricians for sleeping through the night is 5 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
When you look at that, you go, oh, man, we've been nailing it all this time.
My wife's feeling a bit ripped off because she read a lot of the perhaps less balanced information that's floating around out there for new mums, and my wife's a little bit younger, and so probably had more of that Instagram idea of not that she's a big Instagram, but she's just had that idea of it's going to be beautiful, and
I'm doing it wrong.
So I've had a kid before, and so I kind of knew what we were in for. And there came a moment actually about 2 months in, because the first 8 weeks are pretty horrendous for most parents. And she pretty much looked at me and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I'm like, "I did. I tried to, but you can't explain this stuff. You have to go through it."
Our other challenge is and this is one of the things I want everyone to realize, is that every stage of our kids' development brings a gift and a challenge. So I'm sure you could remember your beautiful partners probably can't wait till they can crawl and walk, and then you can't find them, and you can't wait till they talk, and then they don't shut up, and then you can't wait till they get brave, and then you wish they weren't brave, and then they become teens and tweens where they're wired to take on the world and be risky and push you out the road, and nothing. If you seriously. And I think my challenge for parents is to remind you, focus on the good bits. Focus on the gifts that each age brings, and kind of stop focusing on the challenges, because this is actually Mother Nature growing us up to be humans, which is how we've done it since we first became humans. And it's not an insta-perfect world, and that you need to surround yourself with people who are real and earthy and who will laugh with you over the disasters, and drop off coffee when you can't get to the coffee shop and you need one of those coffees. No, drop the food off at the front door. Don't need to see, whatever. And we reach out and ask for help when the poo hits the fan.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what we actually still have to need for us to raise healthy kids. So it's about finding the tribe rather than the whole village.
Yes.
There's just those few people who are on the same page as you. Kids may be the same age, or they're just decent humans who get it and are prepared to every now and then help out because you're going to help them out. That's how we used to do it.
Yeah.
Maggie, you talked earlier about the way our parents parented us, and that's obviously a big tenet of making change. How on earth do we, as you know, not just mums and dads, but then as employers, because as coaches, Coxie and I see this stuff show up with our clients when they start to employ younger people. It doesn't matter how much younger; it's just the fact that they're younger. How the heck do we move on from the way my dad did it or the way your mum did it?
Oh, look, and it's one of the biggest things, and why it was so great to have this chat is that let's just focus on the male employees because they're kind of like in the far majority, you know, and that when you have a young lad come to you, kind of immediately you will step into that parent space of authority. And that figure of authority is going to be the voice of your father figure mostly. Yep. And, you know, the number of times that even in my counselling days that I've worked with young lads who were actually contemplating ending their life because of the shame that was happening in their workspace. When I deconstructed it, it actually wasn't shame. It was like the teasing and banter that's a part of the male world, like the boy that was sent to look for the black and white paint, you know, and the left-handed screwdriver and all that dumb shit, which we can laugh about. But if they haven't, and their sense of humor is, you know, like at the end of the day, it's still fixed. Sometimes in the teenage years, you don't get it, right? So they're thinking, oh, they're, you know, they're really putting me down. You trigger shame. So my biggest message, I think, is, you know, pausing in those moments. If you can see the reaction on a young lad's face that it's not what you were planning, you know, that you might just think, hang on a minute, I just need to recognize this is a young lady whose prefrontal lobe doesn't finish till nearly 30 now. That didn't work kind of. I might need to, you know, back off of that for a while until we get a stronger sense of connection. So the more closely they feel safe with their mentor, their, you know, boss, the more likely he can actually say, mate, that was actually a joke. Can you see? There's no left-handed screwdriver, dude. So in other words, you can actually coach them into understanding the banter, not just assuming that you'll give more of it. And so it's not just, you know, between the boss and that one, who else is working for you? And are they doing that stuff behind the scenes? Because I remember one lad came to me absolutely apoplectic. And this was before smartphones. That's how long ago I was counselling. And he was feeling really sick because there were all these pornographic magazines in the smoko room. And that's not what he was raised to have. And so he again was starting to feel, I don't even know if I want to be here. And yet it was the trade that he has yearned to be for his entire life. And in the end, we actually negotiated and found him another place where that wasn't happening. So you've got to look at what is the accepted culture within the organisation that is allowing this male patriarchy misogyny to be normalised, or have they lifted the standard? And it's a difficult conversation because we now know, even though we've got this wonderful shift towards dads turning up with big hearts, the online porn and the accessibility and the degradation of it is now shifting everything backwards. So that the comments are worse, the calling out towards women walking past are worse, sexual harassment is worse. We've got boys using rape threats in classrooms down to year 3 and 4.
Oh, wow.
Because of the ease of access of that disgusting stuff. So I think employers have to have those awkward conversations at times with the whole team going, this isn't the environment we want. We want to raise an environment where we're able to work and do what we want, and we do it respectfully, regardless of whoever we've got working for us. And the same goes for boys who are gay in that space. You know, everyone thinks that gay guys don't do trades. Right? It's the same as they don't play rugby. Well, I'll give you a tip, right? Some of them do. And so, again, some of them are really terrified of that old judgment that says, you know, whatever. And I'm not even using any of those words. So having that culture means you've got to be brutally honest up front about it from time to time, reminding them this is the culture we want in our space, because not only does it make everybody feel safer, when you have relational safety, you have what we call social cohesion, which means everyone works better. No one's turning up stressed, worried about what's going to happen. They turn up feeling safe. You'll get the absolute best out of everyone when that sort of a culture is present.
I feel like, and sorry, Nicole, this is my personal view. I feel like men need to be men in order to create that sort of a shift. You know, men need to, like, 30 something plus, particularly the 40 plus. I think there's no excuse for the 40s and the 50 plus to just let that stuff slide. I think it's on us middle-aged fellas who I was raised by. You know, my dad was born in the early 40s. So he was an older dad. So he's sort of generations back, where all the stuff you're talking about, Maggie, is exactly what he grew up with. All that hazing and the bullying and everything else was part of sort of a rite of passage, even though it was a shit one. I think it's up to guys like me who have roots in that old generational crap to actually stand up and say, hey, fellas, come on, button off a bit. That's, you know, that's not appropriate.
And the same with violence against women. If we, you know, when the good guys start getting more vocal and going, no, that's just not okay in our world, I think we will see a change. But at the moment, I think the same thing, what you've just suggesting there. So if somebody has said that, that's the other thing. How do I handle that? You know, like you can make that light comment, but what you do need to do is at some point a one-on-one private conversation where you actually have the ability to stress the importance of that. Otherwise, you know, then, you know, like, you know, you're better than this, mate.
Yeah.
You are better than this. This isn't the sort of men I want in this environment, because we influence the next generation. Would you like to contribute to a young boy taking his own life, or would you like to contribute to a young boy realizing who his true potential is and looking back at you as one of the best people that's ever been in his life?
And I think just on this thread, so Nicole and I speak separately to our men and our women in our client cohort, and we give them the opportunity. You know, we have a blokes chat and a ladies chat, and they don't complain about the blokes or the ladies, respectively. What they do is they actually speak in their own language about bloke stuff and ladies stuff, because it's kind of a, you know, it's a space where they feel they can do that. And a lot of the time, the chat that I foster within our blokes group is around not really knowing how to be assertive, how to carry these things out in their own business, in their own workspace, or with clients who are being that older generation, you know, the patriarchal way. And I think they're worried about doing it wrong, to go back to what we were saying before.
You just nailed something really big on the head there, Waz, and I really want to jump in and explain this. So what we now know is that the way that girls and women create self-worth, not self-esteem, self-worth, and the way boys and guys do is very different. So the key thing for boys and men, that's why the trades can be like the best thing or the worst thing, is that even little boys, they give themselves self-worth when they feel that they judge what they've just done. Now, it doesn't matter if building a Lego tower, hitting a target, which is why I encourage a lot of pillows, because they'll throw other shit to hit targets. By being competitive sometimes, you know, did I win the race? Did I win the game? Is that you remember, and it's still linked to the old patriarchy, there's only one way to be a man, means that I'm really worried I'll muck it up. I'm worried I'm going to fail. And so I'm worried I'm going to get it wrong. So I think that is one of the hurdles that we've got at the moment around this. I reckon when we jump that hurdle, there won't be, because you know what? No man can muck it up if your intention is about lifting the standards of how we expect men to be. But it is very much, can you see why this is the young tradie who's just mucked up the same thing for the third time? He's going to be shaming himself.
Absolutely.
As well as feeling I'm a loser and I'm hopeless, right? So it's how do we help them? And I spend a lot of time talking about what we do when boys muck up. And that's because as little boys, you know, they're wired with testosterone and incredible impulsivity and a need to move their bodies and their hands and touch stuff that no one else wants them to touch, including their penis. But what happens is they're busted so much.
Yep.
You know, and therefore they keep thinking I'm always wrong and there's something wrong with me.
Mhm.
And therefore, by the time they get to school, and I'm really still cross that boys are being shamed in our particularly early childhood, kindies and preps and classes, because they're not as cognitively capable as girls. They can't sit as still and they get busted all the time. So can you transfer that to a teenage boy with even bigger feelings of who am I and, whatever? It's so important that we're able to develop that mentor relationship that says, mate, you're going to make mistakes.
Mhm.
When you make them, rather than cover it up and pretend you haven't done it, I want you to come to me because that's how I learned to be a good, whatever, diesel mechanic. I didn't get it all right? So when we relate that to them, the easier we make it to make mistakes and to fix them, not only is it better for your business because they're not going to cover up some bad mistakes, you are actually shaping that young boy's character into becoming a man who'll do the same thing. And that's how we can create really positive change in so many ways.
Having a go is way more important than getting it
Absolutely.
right. And I'm now going to step out of Coxie's way because I have chopped her off about 4 times. I'm being a typical
It's
older
coming.
generation man. Nicole, please.
I was just going to say, having an opportunity, we do this quite well. I think mostly we do this quite well when kids are young and we're teaching them how to do things for the first time. By the time they're teens or apprentices, let's talk about apprentices, we remove the opportunity for them to fail in a safe way. And yet if we allow the failure in a safe way, and I use that word pretty loosely because they're just making a mistake, if we allow the safety around that, they have the opportunity to learn, and then it sets those neural pathways for how am I going to deal with these mistakes as I keep moving forward.
Yes.
And so we have that safe zone that I think as an employer, I don't think we think about this before we employ, particularly when we're employing apprentices. It's just like, oh, I need to fill a hole. Let's get a young fella in.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so we don't mindfully move through that practice like we do as many parents do. We go out actively seeking to be the best parent I can be, but I'm not thinking about being the best employer. And when we're taking young men and we're putting them into apprenticeships and teaching them how to be people and men and tradespeople as we move forward, we're actually becoming very responsible for a very key learning period in their lives. And yet we just hear pretty consistently from our client base and all trades actually that we speak to, well, they should just know how to do it, or they should do it better, or they should do as they're told, rather than trying to get to the heart of, well, what's
right.
Yeah.
Actually
All
developing
right.
them.
Can I dive into why they're not
Please.
Okay. And I've written a whole entire book on it, but I'm going to condense it down that anytime from, I'm going to focus mainly on boys because girls is, they're more likely to ask a couple of questions. They actually think things before they make a choice, right? Okay. So as a boy moves into these, let's go 14 plus. And remember there were guys, that's when they left to leave school, 14, right? And they go off. And I've talked to guys who went out building the rabbit-proof fence in Western Australia who didn't go home for 4 or 5 months and were just there with men. Yep. Obviously there was no gaming out there and no phones and everything, but, at the end of the day, that wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
They learned to sing around campfires. They learned to fart loudly. They learned to, you know what I mean? Anyway, okay. So at 14, that's a really good age. Some go a bit earlier, some are later. So what happens is the first thing happens is the brain starts pruning off stuff that it thinks you shouldn't need as you head towards adulthood. And that's a good thing to make it more efficient. However, the brain's a little bit dodgy at that because it accidentally prunes off a little bit too much at times. So from 14 to 16, 15 probably, like 12 to 15, but it can continue through beyond there. It takes a while to not. They get more forgetful, more disorganized, right? So they were probably more capable of following those instructions before, the pubes started growing, basically. And then in that same window, the brain has worked out, not only does it have those difficulties, it also has difficulty around monosyllabic grunting, which it accidentally prunes off some of the speech centers. So sometimes it sounds like a guy's deliberately trying to be a nickhead. No, he's not. And it's not open his mouth. It's his brain they've got to catch up. So I guess, I'm not saying anything new. There's a lot of bosses out there who have been aware of this for years. Doesn't mean he's not trying if he says, what?
Yeah.
He's not, what? I don't know. And then the next one that can really cause confusion in that window is that the way that we explain things is no longer seen through the same lens. I call it the cracked windscreen. And a really good example is that there was this really good big move to educate teens around the dangers of drinking alcohol, and was called Respect Yourself. And in these advertisements, they just had a lot of drunk teenagers staggering around. Then they put respect yourself, so they'd see that that's not respecting yourself. Every person with a prefrontal cortex got that message. And what happened to the teens is they said, I can't wait to get that pissed.
Yeah.
That looks like the best fun. I can't even wait. How do I get hold of alcohol? Opposite.
Yep.
And that's why sometimes when a boss does not understand the cognitive capacity of them in that moment. So my suggestion is that if you want to give a young lad at the beginning of the day like 5 jobs to do, it would, to nail it, it'd be great if you jot it down or text it to him, right? You're going to get him done then, because they get so focused on one thing. This is the single focus of the male brain. He gets so focused on that, you'll have to forget everything else, like what else you asked me to do next. When I finish that, I'm going to go, now, what was that other thing again?
Yeah.
Right. And I think when we understand that, we can actually build these little scaffold, just small shifts that can keep them on track so they can go back to it. And that's tricky. And then the other bit is, the whole why didn't you understand what I just said is that sometimes they don't. Because it's a new environment. You've been doing it for 25 years, dude. Of course you understand it, right? I just showed him once. Well, sometimes you need to show them, not just show, let him do it while you're still there. Because what we know with the male brain, it's often really about doing and kinesthetic, which is why when you talk too much, you'll glaze over. You can only handle about 15 words, which a lot of mothers are only just learning. But if you show him a bit, then you say, you have a go, mate. Right? Yeah, no, just twist it that way a little bit more. And then you're putting it into his kinesthetic memory. He's also got a visual memory, so he can take that forward, but he can't take just words explaining something without the actions that can anchor the learning in. And you will increase their capacity to do the tasks rather than just a quick 2-minute chat says, I want you to put that over there, right? And you might think, okay, what could go wrong, right? And you might just be a bit mindful of this. So you've just completely changed the way that his new learning, and there's still a chance he could make a mistake, but he's actually got a far better learning capacity of being successful rather than, that continuing. And the other thing, we've got to remember their GABA's been turned off. That's their impulse control. So at different times, if he has got his phone, he just will have to get out there and just see what's going on and watch a cat video, and he's not deliberately being disrespectful. Like the dopamine of boys runs out quicker. So what I love when a boy's into his trade, he'd forget he even has his phone.
Yeah.
So into what he's doing. That's his mojo. That's making the dopamine, the brain that says, man, I've got to be able to finish. This is great. I wonder how to do. What's next? And that's that environment again that I mentioned, but also the person who's mentoring them has given them just enough stretch. Right? But not too much, because then I'm scared I'm going to fail.
Yep.
Just enough stretch and go. And I think it's the same with anything. Can they cook their own breakfast? Can they learn to unpack a dishwasher? Can they, all those sorts of things. The way we present the task is incredibly important to the degree of success that he's going to have.
I think it's really important to be educating the employers. I don't think we do enough in that space to help them understand the responsibility that they have when they take somebody on. I think about my own sons, and they're varying, with 3 sons, you assume, well, I wrongly assumed right back in the beginning that they'd all learn the same way. They do not.
Yeah, no way.
And they all take on the information at different capacities at different times in their lives. They're just so totally different.
Yeah.
And I think that school's responsible for this in a large way, because we have taught generations that we're all going to learn the same way, and therefore we're going to teach the same way when it comes to being an employer, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Don't start me on what schools do to our boys who are getting to trades. Do not even go there. But okay, I'm going to drop this one in, because the boys, I had to laugh the other day. I was in Melbourne, right? And I'm watching these guys washing windows, and they're at the back, like 12th floor. And I went, I know those boys. They were in my English class. They didn't want to write no damn essay or story. That sucks, miss. But look at them. You know what I mean? And I And then you look at the ADHD boys who genuinely have ADHD, not the ones who just are normal boys, once again, struggling with the demands of our classrooms with no flexibility.
Yes.
And they are often our absolute best workers because they have more energy, right? They're the ones who can work incredibly long hours. And we know that men have got muscle strength that's above girls, but that energy capacity, oh my God, I look at them and our job, once again, when we celebrate both pathways equally, then they're going to dive into it with more confidence, aren't they? We're not I'm the loser, I go that way. No, mate, and I remember this story with one of my boys. Two of them were at university. One was doing, I can't remember what it was, some sports admin or something, and the other one was doing radiography. And their mates, like they're 4 years in, and 3 of their mates were doing FIFO on 120 grand a year. And they went, Mum, I think I'll do FIFO. And I went, no, mate, you'd be bored as batshit because you're actually not that physically energetic.
Yep.
And also you actually have a brain that's quite good around maths and science, right? So these guys, which everybody was thinking, no, not poor boys at all. Just watch me, right? And I have, one of the other boys in my class that never graduated, one of the few that didn't graduate my class or anywhere else. He was the geeky guy into, technology, and he sold a software company at 22 for a couple of mil, right? So that's the judgment that I sometimes find as they go out into a trade area. And when parents and when the boss is about celebrating, we're going to find you a path in life, mate, that's going to let you, realize every dream you've ever got. But it's a bit of a journey to get there, right? You got to do it on not much money, and it's going to be hard work, and you've got to put in some hours. But that's how you get to the place where you can earn seriously good corn and buy whatever car you want. I think those messages come from both parents, and our bosses, not just, oh God, I need to fill a space. We sow seeds of potential. Might be exactly what you want to do. Or we might sit down with them and go, mate, I don't think this is the right one for you. But I've been watching what you do, and I reckon you've got this sort of a focus. And I've got a mate who's got a business, like whatever. Why don't we, go over there and have a little go there and see if that's it? I love it if we could do that. So it's not just about me meeting the needs of my business. What am I doing for the lads who are looking for a place in life that gives them worth and meaning? Yep. If we all stepped into that space, God, we could change what's going down, right?
Very
that
good.
they know they're not just their parents batting for them. And some don't even have that, let's be honest. But I've got one significant, I call them lighthouse figures, that's shining a light on me while I'm sitting in my dark doom and gloom place thinking I'm a loser.
Yeah.
Sowing those seeds of potential. Wow. Then you as a man, when you get to be 80, you're going to sit back and go, yeah, I did good.
Yeah.
I did good. I made a difference in kids' lives. And I can't tell you how important that is.
Maggie, you mentioned this, the throwaway saying it takes a village, and I love your distinction on that around it taking a tribe.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a way that men can actually create or be part of a tribe, which we've lost, unfortunately, with all of this connectivity, quote unquote, that we have with social media. We've never been further apart from each other than ever before. And so a lot of men, I believe, just in my observation over 15 years of working with people, is they yearn for that connection with a tribe and for the ability to pass on knowledge. When Nick and I talk to our clients about what are your goals, what do you want to create, so many of them, especially the men, talk about that whole legacy thing. It's wired into us that we want to provide for our families, whatever that looks like these days, and we want to leave something. We want to leave a mark. And this is such a wonderful way that employers, that businessmen can actually create that, rather than, I guess, just fall victim.
How big your
I use
house
that
is.
word consciously. Fall victim to societal pressure, all the external forces that they think they should be paying attention to. So my question, Maggie, is coming back to the men, and I'm picturing a few guys that I've been speaking with lately in our client group. How do we help those men actually, I guess, bring that to the fore and I suppose, I don't know, find their own way rather than just get sucked into the idea that they have to work harder and they've just, they've got to do the suffering and the slog and all that sort of stuff, and that there is a different way.
That's how deep our conditionings are. And we know that there's biological drives in there as well, was because, when we were still out in our kinship communities and just one, community, the main job for the men, right, was to go and kill the mammoths and the saber-toothed tigers and then the deer for dinner, or practice killing. And so that biological wired for me to provide and protect is still there, even though now we know we've even got women who can do it, which is super. And I'm loving seeing some pretty powerful women out there doing this stuff as well. But we know so that messaging is not only an unconscious thing, it is coming from DNA. And I think what the man box says is the only way you can do it is if you have more than everyone else and you're bigger. And I've worked with so many men who said, look, I've been striving up this mountain, and then I got to the top and thought, oh, bugger, is that it? So I want to talk about the stages of boyhood to manhood, because this will help answer this question. So, and this comes from Alison Armstrong's work, and she just wondered why she kept attracting frogs, but she didn't really get guys. See, it didn't happen for me. Okay, so we go from so boys are like pages, right? And then they become knights, which is so good, like knights out there trying to conquer the world, and they're brave and fearless. So your knight stage can last anywhere from 10 to 12 to, like it used to be in the early days, it was only about 5 or 6 years. Whereas now it's gone right through, and it used to be 27. And now with gaming and technology, it's slowing the growth of the prefrontal. So it's now out to 30.
Wow.
And that's if you haven't got a gaming, disorder or an addiction.
Yep.
And then the next stage is the prince. And this is where a guy suddenly goes around. It used to be about 27. And I speak to so many men at 27 that went, holy heck, I need to get myself sorted out. Right, now's the time. I've seen guys change from a trade to electrical engineering degrees. Men become doctors. It's this big window where they go, no, it's motivated. I've had enough fun.
Yeah.
And so I need to settle down and, find a queen or create something. If you've already got one, you'll be doing it together. So that first stage of Prince is we start looking seriously, making different choices. Middle stage Prince, and this is a lot of what most of your clients, I think, would be, is we strive. We work our butts off because of that drive to provide. We're going to work. They work unbelievably powerful. Like unbelievable hours, but also it's often the time when they're actually got kids. So there's the pull and tug of I'm out there, and then my partner's saying, why aren't you home? It's really hard with these little kids. And this is one of those big, windows, which we're now starting to, I'm a really big part of the Fathering Project, getting businesses to recognize parental flexibility for both parents is really important. And so then that's that big window. But it's a window of massive power in men. They feel like they could conquer the world in that window. And then they get to what we call late Prince, where it's kind of like, look, it's looking all right. The kids are nearly off, and, we've got the boat and we go on holidays and mortgage is nearly sorted. We're sitting back going, I think I've got it sorted. But unfortunately, that window only lasts about 6 weeks to 6 months. And then there's this new journey, which is the one we talked about a little bit before, where a man suddenly goes, now, is that all there is to life? Because I'm feeling a bit empty right now.
Yeah.
And this is where a man starts going to the journey to king, where he strips away all the bullshit in his life and all his ego, because he wants to contribute, because he wants to go to a greater cause, because he wants to leave a legacy that's not just his house or whatever to his kids. And that's where we become that king. That's the midlife crisis. And so some men in that window go back to middle Prince, get a new partner, get the racing car, or start a new business.
Yes.
Yeah, but you still got to go down the tunnel at some point to become a king. And then the men who are king, them, they're wise, decent men. Not that, it doesn't mean to say you've got a buff body and look slim and trim, but you're these wise men that have time for younger men or their community. They often do volunteering. And I just love it when I can spend time with those men who've realized, gee whiz, I wish I knew what I knew now, but I didn't. And then I go, so how are you imparting that amazing knowledge back to the young ones so they don't have to make quite as many mistakes? But is that and that's where you work with men who've run a business for 25 years. they're really heading towards that window, or they're already in it, or the way they run their business reflects where they are on the journey to man.
I feel like part of that is helping some of those late stage princes actually get clarity on what their king stage could look like, open up the
That's
awareness
exactly
of those
it.
possibilities.
Yeah, because is it like it, and sometimes it's the drive to get bigger, 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 which is, I believe that's still more man box than it is actually a biological drive because, come on, you're going to get more respect if you get bigger. And I think sometimes we go, is bigger going to really give us more happiness? Is it going to help my family? That's when their health starts struggling.
Yeah,
that's when they don't go and get checkups, their heart playing up, and that stress means you're not very good to live with. So that's where we have a lot of those, relationships breaking down, and they end up being lonely men with a lot of money. So again, I think, where do we have those big conversations that says, so tell me, how much better is it going to be if you work, you do that? Tell me how is it? And then they really think about it. And what I love about men, you just have to drop a question. You don't have to expect an answer. He's going to go away and process that over a couple of weeks. And that's when the penny drops and he goes, nah, actually it's going to be worse. I think I'm making a decision from my head, but I need to listen to my heart. And when we talk to men about listening to their heart, they look at you, that's only what women do. But when they really listen to it, then they often step up and make a really good decision.
Love that. Maggie, can I take you back to something you said earlier in our chat? You talked about the way men create self-worth, or boys or men, and the way women create self-worth. We went off and talked about the male side. Can you talk about the lady side and how they create self-worth?
Yeah, this is right. It's really a pain in the neck because girls are wired because of estrogen, but also because we have the ones that have babies, we're wired to create a circle around us at all times. That's why our friendship dramas are so potentially disastrous. So in actual fact, most female self-worth is determined by how other females judge them.
Yep.
So you can see why Insta becomes a cesspool. And then what we do is we internalize stories that actually aren't true. And so one of the gifts, and I'm sure you're discovering this, Nic, that the older you get, the more you realize that's shit too. Yep. And in actual fact, I'm probably okay, and I was okay all along. So the older you get, the more you just don't care. But golly, it's so hard early on. So you can see in a workspace environment, females are always judging, what do I think the boss thinks of me? What do I think of that person thinking of me? And, one simple example, I was with my two of my beautiful granddaughters, and I send out a great love to anyone who has multiple girls in one family. And we were ready for book week. She had the book ready and the costume ready, and she comes down next morning, honest to God, not quite 5, and says, I'm not doing that. And the mum said, why, darling? She said, because the other girls won't like it.
Yep. We
couldn't budge her.
No,
right? So can you see again, there's a part of the time I wish I had a man brain.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that guys do, that single focus is when you go to bed, you're single focus. And when women go to bed, we review every decision we made because we want to be a better mother and a better woman. And how many kilojoules did I eat? And oh my God, there's a load of washing I haven't done. And oh my God, what will they get into university? And oh, there's a birthday party next week. And what are we going to get for Christmas presents this year? And then we go back to our 21st. What do I wear that dress for? Oh my God, I got booking for my eyebrows. Can't have terrible eyebrows in the female world. And we're still awake at 1:00 in the morning with this massive mental load. Yeah, I mean, I am the one that made Kate Ritchie cry and created a reel that went to 25 million women because, this is the other brain that's different. And I put my head out to all the female bosses you work with because she's got the business she runs on top of the family, herself, her mother, her childhood.
Yeah.
And I think one of the beautiful things that came from that reel was how many dads stepped forward and said, give me something off your to-do list.
Yeah.
Give me something. I didn't even know I know you're often awake, but give me something because that's not okay. I can do more. But there's a chance you'll also forget. So you have to actually work on that.
Make a list.
Well, we go to sleep and everything resets.
Yeah.
The next day.
And I think, how good is it that we can have these wonderful conversations now and laugh and, be okay with it. But the very fact that so many good men had not realized that, had no idea, including the two announcers who are good guys. They just looked, they laughed because they thought I was joking. That's how completely, and we'd love it if they were joking. Hey, Nick, and we just clear it off, like put the rubbish in. No, which is also why sometimes as women, because we don't forget anything. I mean, I argue we don't forget stuff that didn't even happen, but no. And that we can get really angry with the man we're living with when he forgets bin night. Like, what the hell, mate? It's Tuesday. What are you doing? Like, how can you forget it? But of course, I bat for the guys.
Yes.
Because I know there's something that's distracted them.
Yep.
And that either there's something big at work, or they're worried about their apprentice, or they're doing their footy tipping, or there's a rash on their scrotum. Any one of those things mean temporarily they forgot it's Tuesday bin night. So can we come alongside them with love and rub their shoulder and go, bin night, babe? You know, like we're the people with the memory. And, you know, I think, it's been really interesting because I've had people say it's improved their marriage.
I think you said it before, Maggie, and I've cut Nick off again. Oh, come on.
Very
this
good.
is not me. But clearly it is. You said earlier about parenting, it's a team effort. And I certainly am seeing that in my own personal circumstances where I have the privilege of having another go. And my wife and I are an incredible partnership, and I'm so blessed to have met her because we are a true team. And I actually feel sad for people who miss this opportunity to work with somebody in a partnership with kids, with business, and stuff just works. I mean, sure, we have our gravelly bits, as we call them, and some of them are a bit scary, but we always are committed to working together as a team. And
Absolutely.
I think that's missing from a lot of partnerships, particularly, you know, trade business owners where the guy's out doing 50, 60 hours a week on the tools and then trying to do invoicing at night. And, you know, the wife or the partner is doing most of the kids' stuff, probably holding down a part-time job as well, often in healthcare or education. Plus she's trying to help out with the books, and there's no space for those team conversations.
No. And I think one thing I do in any of our, you know, co-parenting situations, what you've just explained is prioritize as a team. What is the one thing that really charges you back up and fills your cup? What is it?
Yep.
You know, if it's riding in Lycra for lots of miles, or it's, you know, yoga, or it's whatever, that you prioritize that happens at least twice a week. And that you both make sure, have you fitted in, make sure you prioritize, no matter what the hell's going down, because that's about the genuine mental health cup filling. Like I've just come back from WA, and my daughter-in-law, who's a GP, likes running very long distances, like 12 or 15 k's. You knock yourself out. I'm right here looking after the kids. And Dad's a surfer. So, and I hear them negotiating it often, and I go, thank you. Like, just let the mess in the lounge room, you know, like, let's just, you know, get takeaway.
Yep.
Let's just prioritize that, because in that whole survival, our ability to regulate our big feelings is determined by how much time do I have to just regroup from time to time. And if they can, I still want to sit down sometimes, you know, get chocolate out, get ice cream out, and just have a short touch base. You know, where are we at with this? And there's one other tip I want to give for all of you out there, teen parenting, and that is there's a dad's way to do stuff sometimes that isn't the same as mum's, and us mums need to learn to back off and let it be okay, right? Does it matter if the onesie goes over the leggings or not? No child is harmed, right? We just let it go, because we need to step back so dad can step forward, right?
Maggie, you have perfectly brought me back around to my question, or something. You've demonstrated something all throughout today's podcast, and many times that I've listened to you before. And I think there is this culture of judgment that we live in. And as women, we judge ourselves. As men, they judge themselves. I'm worried about what other women, less now, think of me, so on and so forth. You've demonstrated it a lot as we've spoken through today. And I wonder, as parents and employers, if there is a way for us to begin to instill a culture without judgment, to teach the next generations that it's okay to be free of judgment, and to prevent them from also then perpetuating that continued judgment.
Oh, look, I think it's really simple, is that we're all trying to do the best we can, Nick. And some days we get it right and it makes us feel great. And other days it just, like life, it will turn up And that's it. It's not that we're any less a person. And I think the self-judgment is probably the most toxic thing that we can, if that's unhealthy within us, we really need to shine a light on that, because there is, genuinely, I absolutely see it all the time, even in my classroom with illiterate boys who couldn't read in my English classroom. They were still turning up and having a go, because they knew they were in an environment where there was a really safe human whose face still shone up when they walked in the door, that they still mattered. And I think, they're the two things I think that we basically are all trying to do the best we can. We're all learning. I'm still learning. There are things I'm learning all the time that I get really excited about, at the end of the day, every human matters.
Yeah.
And that sometimes we matter more in our home environments, or we matter more in our work environment, but we have to make sure that everybody feels that they matter. And I think the only way to do that is to make sure they feel seen and heard. Seen and heard. And sometimes I don't think that's what we do in workspaces. We don't listen to the apprentices. We don't listen to our students in our classrooms. We don't even listen to our kids as much. And it's interesting because my granddaughter, who's about to do a speech this week, If Kids Ruled the World, I laugh because she said, if we ruled the world, and her funny bit is the doctors would say, eat more lollies, and we'd be able to watch more TV, and we were able to read, not do homework and readers, but read what you like. And then she said, but seriously, if we really listened to kids, I think grown-ups would see that what really matters is how we'd like to be treated, how each other would like to be. Like, it was this wisdom coming out of this 8-year-old. And I thought, we often forget, check in. How's this working for you? Or what else could I do to help you, nail that? In other words, coming to realize that we don't have to have all the answers, that we're humans growing together, and that letting people be seen and heard and valued, even if they're mucking up, that we're still on a journey of growing. I think that makes a difference for parenting or wherever we are in the workspace.
Very much. Sage words.
Maggie, we could take so much more of your time, but we're not going to. I have one question that I'd like to ask that I've asked almost all of our guests here on the podcast over the last 10 years. And that is, if you had 1,000 trade business owners in a room, which for us would be husbands and wives, generally speaking, if you had 1,000 trade business owners in a room, what's one piece of advice you would like to leave them with?
Lighten up. Life is way too serious. No joke. The more that we lighten up in our workspaces and our homes, the safer everybody feels. I absolutely say, lighten up, stop stressing so much, because, you don't know how long you've got on this earth, but we know that laughter releases tension and stress. Yeah, lighten up in your workplace, lighten up in your home.
Well, I'm taking that as vindication for my idiotic sense of humour.
Yes.
So I'm going to continue with my dumb jokes and my clowning around.
Well, it took us right back to Nic at the beginning.
Maggie, if people want to find out more about you, what's the best place for them to go and do that?
MaggieDent.com is the website, which has all of my free articles and my free audios, and it has all the bits you can find. I have over 200 videos on YouTube, and of course you've got their podcasts, which are out there wherever you get your podcasts.
Some all good podcasting channels. Maggie, I'll let Nic have the last word for a change. I just want to say thank you. It's been an absolute honour to have you on the podcast. Loved every minute of it, and I'm going to go and buy all your books and make everybody read them as homework in our coaching group. So
you can take them out of the library.
Yeah,
in the library. Apparently, they're the most borrowed books, which is kind of funny. Hey,
Maggie, I'd like to say thank you from all of the parents that you have saved in the trenches. And I'll try not to get too emotional. Your common sense, no fuss approach makes it really easy to consume at times when we need you most. And I really deeply appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Oh, Nic, thank you so much. Every now and then I run into couples and they say, you know what? When everything's going really crap, we can look at each other and go, what would Maggie do? She just make a cup of tea, or she get the chocolate out, and then we'll come back later, right? And I love that. That to me that's pure gold. And it's an honor and a privilege that I get to be in lives, secretly in other ways, because we just want to raise all our kids to end up being happy, healthy humans, don't we, one day, even despite the bumpy moments and the muck up moments, because there's no perfect life that's ever happened. And I have really enjoyed our chat, and I thank you for all you're doing for all those out there, especially those who are guiding our young tweens and teens into the life beyond school, giving them, incredible hope and with compassion. Well done, you guys.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks for all you do for families and for the human race. You're an absolute treasure. Thank you for being on the podcast, and we hope to speak to you again someday soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maggie.
See ya.